door.
Okay.
And mum and their family lived literally in the units next door.
Okay. So what is the family business?
So when we went through multiple name changes, it was Electric Power Tool Services. That went to EPTS Gas World. When we joined a buying group, it then went to Gas World SA.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't really sort of fit. Most people rang us up, expecting to get gas fittings of
I was going to say, yeah.
And then we sort of had this change up of, well, why don't we just call it Adelaide Tools? That was probably the best name that we had for it.
And what era would this have been, like the 80s or?
No, Adelaide Tools was from 2013 through to 2020.
Okay, all right. So it's definitely had lots of different, yeah. So was your dad already from England living in Australia and then met your mum, or? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so Dad's father was a merchant seaman.
Yeah.
So he came over to live in Australia, and Dad was brought up on Kangaroo Island in American River, so very much no shoes, run amok sort of guy.
Yeah.
And the family business was on Mum's side, so Mum's grandfather, engineer by trade, designed toasters for the army, a tinkerer from way back, and somewhat.
Tinkerer, that's a word that you don't hear very often, is it? A tinkerer.
No, you don't. So, he was very much that, morphed into repairing things, and very much a pioneer of the power tool industry as we know it today.
So what was your dad's trade then? Obviously you got working in the family business, but what was your dad's trade?
Sales and marketing.
Okay, all right, okay.
Yeah, so he was a rep for Heinz way back in the day. So, he was one of the guys that would go into a supermarket and sell baked beans essentially to supermarkets.
Good brand though.
And yeah, absolutely, and restock shelves. So, I think there was a discussion that was had amongst the family, because Mum's brother was actively involved in the business as well, around, Dad coming in and being able to provide some support and stability, and Dad was very much that visionary to, introduce more stores and build out the business.
So that would have been quite interesting, because your dad would have come from a corporate well-known brand as well. So to bring that into a family business, I can see that. So going back to year 12, you finished that. You were working out in the workshop. Dad was like, come on, you've got to do something.
We can never get trades. Why don't you go to TAFE and study as a small engine technician?
Okay.
As it was called. So, I mean, these days, you give me a lawnmower or chainsaw or...
Does that exist now in TAFE? Is that a course in
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's coupled with the motorcycle mechanics and the marine technicians.
So it's a little bit wider now.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you put in with that broader group. Automotive a little bit different, but yeah, we were sort of put in with that, small, motorcycle and marine guys.
Yeah.
So, there was 4 of us, throughout my term in TAFE. So.
Just 4
of us.
Yeah.
Just 4 outdoor power equipment guys, and then it came to 3. And
yeah, and that's the problem. I know just from my background is that if a course isn't popular, then TAFE can sometimes take it off their scope, and then there's still a demand for those services, but you can't find them. So an example that we had quite recently was Cert 3 in glazing. You couldn't train to be a glazer in South Australia, for example, and you'd have to go to Victoria and have hands-on training here. So, but there's a significant shortage in those skills. So I'm sure there's probably something in that space where you were at as well.
And trying to find those mechanics these days is very, very difficult as well. I mean, we, a couple of years before I left the business, we were, recruiting and getting people who would, fixed and repaired the little amusement rides that you see in the shopping centres that your kids ride on, because they've got that technical nous.
Yeah.
If you can do it there, you can apply it to chainsaws and, so.
So the business also had power tools, retail sales, but did it also have a maintenance arm as well?
Service as well, yeah. So we were very much a one-stop shop for that tradesman, builders, carpenters, electricians, plumbers, you name it. We were trying to be that shop where they could come and get all of the experience, all the advice and the service. We were very, very strong on service. We matched product quality with that, and then after sales as well. So yeah, repair, warranty repairs, servicing, parts, accessories. That's what we were trying to do. I mean, we achieved it, I suppose.
Yeah. So when you started the business, was it just one store, or has it expanded by then?
Yeah, so I came, straight out of school, we had the 4 stores.
Okay.
So we had Whitmore Square at the time. We had the Lonsdale store, and we had the Parafield store.
Yeah. So you're sort of covering north, south, central.
Correct. Yeah, we were, in a line, and St. Mary's as well.
Okay.
So we had the 4 stores. We also had a lawnmower shop as well, which was under a different brand. And that's where I did my trade before coming back into the family business. Mm-hmm. And when I was overseas, Mum and Dad put another store on, which was out at Gawler. So we literally had, south all the way to north.
So what attracted you to go overseas? Was that just the typical Aussie gap year?
Not so much, no. I distinctly remember being on a work trip with Dad, and we were very lucky to go on different trips to see supplier factories and things. And we were in Germany at the time, and he said, I had this taste of travel, and I was like, wow, what am I seeing here, and what am I missing? Yeah. And Dad said to me, he goes, I did it when I was young, and it's probably something you probably need to look at. So from there, discussions with a couple of mates at school and my sister as well. We all left on the same day, 5 of us.
You're still friends?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it can either be the greatest bonding experience ever and you're going to be friends for life, otherwise you're all
absolutely. I mean, myself and my 2 mates, first flight out, back then it was Singapore Airlines, and my sister and her best friend, 5 of us, so we literally landed Singapore. They went one way and we went the other, and then sort of worked our way up through Europe, and some of us got to London a bit quicker than others, but essentially by Christmas, a couple of days before Christmas, a few of us arrived and ready to start a different life essentially.
Yeah. So what did you do? So you worked in London?
Yeah, well, not London specifically. I lived in London. Yeah. But I worked out in Surrey, in a town called Old Woking. Yes. For a very, very similar type business, family business, more of a hire shop, but they did retail, sales, servicing, pretty much the same brands that we sold here. So I was literally a natural fit. Yeah. And then, obviously for them, lived there for 4 years and worked to travel. I was only going to go there for 1 year, but 4 years later.
Europe's on your doorstep. Let's be honest. It's ridiculous how cheap it is to travel when you're in London.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, for me, I always have a conservative approach. So I take the time to sort of settle in, and I knew that took a bit of time. Yeah. And I think I only did 1 trip in my first year, and then after that, I was like, right, year 2, it's like, a bit more self-confidence. I'd never lived, out of home. So for me, it was very, very new. I mean, I was very sheltered.
So what did you think, obviously 4 years, so you did some traveling, 4 years in the UK. Mm-hmm. What do you think that gave you from a life skills perspective? You just said you were a little bit sheltered, and I don't mean that in a negative way, because I think it's always a time of growth. So how old were you there? We're like 21?
23.
23.
Yeah, 2008. Yeah. We moved. I mean, what a great time to move away, right when the GFC hit. Fantastic. All the money we had in the bank, literally, 2/3 of it gone by the exchange rate. So made it work. But, it was very much the self-discovery. Yeah. I had to just fend for myself. I didn't have, I had a couple of friends and met new housemates, but it was very much own finances, own decisions, own travel, and fend for myself. When, having to go into a completely other business, I didn't have someone to go like, I'm having a problem with this person or whatever. I just had to figure out different ways to circumnavigate, issues and things, and they arose. So.
And I think traveling and housemates and moving, those kind of things, it learns for you to compromise as well. And sometimes, as you said, there might be a problem with something, but is it really a problem, or?
Absolutely.
You've got to make those judgments. So I think compromise is a really good one. So when you came back to Australia, did you come back to Adelaide?
Yes. Yeah, straight back.
Straight back into the family business?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so by that time you had 5 stores.
We had the 6 then.
Oh,
so
okay.
we had the five Adelaide Tools stores, and we had the Oaklands Mower Centre store. Again, it was another discussion with Dad. Mum and Dad come over for Christmas in 2011, and Dad's like, so what are you doing? Again, in a pub, New Year's Eve, what are you doing with your life? Are you coming back? I said, look, I think I'm done here. I've done everything that I've wanted to, and ready to step back in. And it had taken that year for me to figure out, do I really want to go back? And more specifically, go into the family business. So yeah, great. I said on the one caveat that, how about you and I go to the US? I'll meet you there in November, and we'll travel for 3 weeks.
Okay. This was with your dad?
With Dad, yeah, just the 2 of us.
Lads and Dad's trip?
Yep. And we'll figure out what it, looks like. Great. I mean, let's be fair, it was a junket. Memphis, Chicago, New York. I mean, 2 blokes, just.
That must have been really special for you and your dad.
Incredible. The on and off bus tours, right?
Yeah.
Why not? Let's do one in New York. Great. Getting cold. We did it, right? And let's be honest, it was a pub crawl. Right, let's get off here. There's a pub. Awesome. So we went and had a pint or 2.
Yeah.
We'll get back on. A pint or 2. Chicago blues clubs.
Yeah.
Every night. Fantastic. Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
NFL went and did that. So we did this whole, boys bonding, sport and eating and drinking and music thing for 3 weeks. And then we landed back in, mid-December.
I'm sure you had some really big heart-to-hearts on that trip as well.
Probably.
You can't remember them because of all the too many pubs?
we I hope Mum doesn't see this. I mean, she's not very good with, digital stuff, right? But, we had one night in the front bar of the Hyatt Regency, which is above Grand Central Station. That's where we were staying. And we got onto mojitos somehow. And it was one of the greatest nights, I think, we've probably, had as a father and son. So, so then we said, right, let me have Christmas off, and, mid-January I'll start back and we'll go from there.
Okay. So what happened when you did go back into the business?
I mean, the main premise was to come in and go, we've got a static website.
Yeah. So you need to make that dynamic, so online and stuff.
Yeah, we need to turn this into an e-commerce. Do you think you can handle it? I'll put my hand up, be the first person to say that, technology is not my thing.
But you've got a technical mind, though.
The Mr. Fix-It mentality. Yes, absolutely. I can apply myself and we'll see what happens. So came back in, and that was the goal. Firstly, sort of recognize that, you're working on some fiber optic network, server upgrade with Telstra and IT partners, which was, I mean, no one, Mum and Dad were, in their 60s.
Yeah.
At the time, who knows what, we don't know what we're spending our money on. So I worked on that first, and that was very much the baseline of stores being able to operate and communicate back to head office. So we did that.
And head office still in Whitmore?
At that time, yes.
Yeah.
So we did that. So that sort of paved the way to then go, right, well, now we can focus on an e-commerce store. So, we brought a couple of people in to help us. 8 months of spreadsheets and products and data and just images and I mean, I don't think my eyes are the same. Never have been. And then, within 8 months, we had a, website that in its first year, turned a multi-million-dollar, revenue, which is,
Were you operating nationally by this stage, or was it still South Australian based, even though it was e-commerce? You didn't expand that outside?
Well, the e-commerce offer was across Australia.
Yeah.
And we were sending items to all parts of Australia. I mean, it was fascinating to watch. I mean, who would buy this and on a store when they're in a completely different state? But people did.
Yeah.
And it was great.
Yeah.
So again, it was, and by that time I was sort of starting to find my feet in where I sat, in the business, because we had a general manager, we had a sales manager that were handling the day-to-day of the stores.
But in some respects, the business was actually diversifying. So in some respects, you could own that space where it wasn't sort of stepping on toes within more of the traditional
Absolutely.
structure, which was a good for everybody. And if it was turning a good profit and it was flying, how did you market? I'm just curious now, because obviously you would have had a significant brand here in South Australia. You moved to e-commerce and then you went national. How did you market that?
To be honest, we didn't really have a strategy.
Okay, that's okay.
We started with an eBay store.
Okay.
And we ran some sort of exclusive products which we built ourselves.
Right.
And they were priced so well that other companies were a little bit slow to take up what we were doing and how we did it.
Okay.
I don't really want to go into how we did that, but
no, that's fine. No, that's
but yeah,
fine.
essentially, yeah, that's sort of how
good
we did
old
it.
eBay.
So we literally had probably like there was 2 products from 2 separate suppliers, which no one could beat us.
Yeah.
And we were selling them hand over foot.
Great.
And that sort of started it. And then, we had good SEO ranking. I was working with some really cool people in the SEO space at that time. And, we naturally just built out this website. And I mean, it wasn't big numbers, but, after a year when you've got, extra $1 million worth of revenue.
Yeah.
It was like, cool.
Yeah. Not to be sniffed at all. So from there, what happened?
2017, I got married, December the 30th. And at that time, we were about to embark on myself working with the business coach in the business because we wanted to significantly grow the online space.
The business. So was your grandfather probably had passed by that time?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, for a while. And mum and dad were running the business.
Yeah. Were they looking to retire or no? They're too active.
It was never it was so much, the mouse wheel or hamster wheel of, day to day in and doing stuff that it was never a thought.
No.
So that year we sort of embarked on building out HR and governance, a project where, we looked at our customer experience and our core values and, position descriptions and, all of the paperwork stuff, which a modern business needs now.
Yeah.
So we worked on that. And, at the time I think it was February or March, this letter came across Dad's desk and it was from one of the big 4 consultancy firms. Dear Mr. Peach, one of our clients is interested in acquiring your business. From what you've heard about my dad, very much a jovial character, the first thing was rip it up.
Yeah, this is a joke.
We've got 5 stores in Adelaide. Who'd want to buy our business? Okay, we got on with life, didn't make anything of it. And I suppose, a month or 2 later, a similar letter arrived. Dear Mr. Peach, not sure if you saw our last
So they were
letter.
referencing the previous letter.
Our client is really, really interested in acquiring your business. Okay, well, a phone call's not going to hurt, is it, Dad?
Yeah.
No. Let's do it. So he made the phone call and I was, sitting opposite, and thankfully there was no videos around then because his desk was an absolute shambles, always paperwork here. And
it wasn't golf, a video call then.
Yeah, no, thankfully. And he was on the phone. Yeah, okay. I'm like, who is it? Because it could only be maybe a couple of companies, handful of companies.
Did they keep that quite private up until were they quite open?
Up until face to face.
Yeah, I was going to say they can be quite, it goes under the radar quite a bit until it sort of gets to that point, doesn't it? There's not a...
And if I remember correctly, Dad had to sort of fish a little bit to in that phone call to say, who is it?
Yeah.
And I remember him, after we got through that point, meeting right in, he's on the phone like this and I'm sitting across from me like we are. I'm hunched down my chair. Like, come on, who is it? He's like, it's Bunnings. I was like,
see, if I said that with the too many O's in that would come out completely different.
Yeah,
I can get imagine your dad saying that. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we spoke to our accountants, and I'll call them accountants at that stage because it morphed into this team of.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
We went and had this discussion. Multiple stories up in the city, a space that I'd never sort of really played in. With store land. Let's sell tools and stuff. and one thing led to another, and it almost just snowballed. We started the communication channels, and our advisors from our accountancy firm came in and said, maybe this is something that as a family you need to think about.
Yeah. And what can I ask? What was the structure of the family business? Was that shareholders, family trust? What?
Family trust.
Family trust. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I look back on it now, I go, what was our business? Is our business the family trust, or was it the tool shops?
Yeah, or the assets, or So having to break that down in the due diligence process with the potential, would it be classed as a merger? Is it buyout? What was the terminology that
acquisition?
Acquisition, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, literally pick up, move over.
Yeah.
Move over is probably not the right terminology, but I suppose in a paperwork sense, we'll take literally everything.
Yeah.
That you have, all the IP, all of it, everything, the name, websites, all of that stuff will become ours.
Yeah.
And you can happily live ever after. I mean, we had the golden handshake, right? And I can say that, but we had to work.
Yeah, I was going to say, how long was that actual process of that acquisition?
2 years.
I was going to say, it's not an overnight thing.
No.
And, you're trying to, in some respects, it's not a given that you're going to sign on the dotted line after those 2 years. So, you're still dealing with this while still doing your day-to-day of running a business. So that must have put quite a bit of pressure.
I talk a lot about these key moments in the process, and I remember we were sitting again with our accountants, and one of them said, and this is April, May time, I think by Christmas we can have this done.
Okay, that's a bit. That seems.
That would have been fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. But the paperwork involved, and again, when you look through it, the price and what's coming with it, and what's staying, and what am I doing, and what are you doing, and the information gathering just continued and continued and continued, and we Bunnings were fantastic. Let me make that point very clear. Their team that we work with were fantastic. But it was always is this going to happen or is it not?
You're in a little bit of limbo.
Yeah, is the number enough? Mum was always, business has been around for 72 years.
She's got a lot of legacy with that as well.
And I mean, she put a huge amount of trust in Dad and I to make the right decision. And again, around their kitchen benchtop, if you guys think this is the right decision, well, let's do it.
Yeah. Can I just ask, just separately to that? So obviously you still had the 5 stores, the 6, the e-commerce website. How many staff were you employing at that time?
55.
55. And the discussions around with Bunnings, was that, and I don't want to say, was that sort of like quiet because of you didn't want to impact the staff or unsettle the staff? How was that being negotiated? Like
full non-disclosure.
So
as Mum, Dad, and myself managed that in complete secrecy is a really bad word.
Yeah, it's
we
not
just
secrecy.
we couldn't say anything. We were so close with our senior team, our sales manager and our general manager. We were ultimately really, really close. But from a family perspective, we just couldn't.
No.
Because we weren't sure if it was happening or if it wasn't happening. So yeah, literally until all the news came out in back end of 2019, October 10th, I think it was, if I remember correctly, we couldn't say a thing. So as you can imagine, like we're trying to drive as much profit out of this business and sales and, like driving it as hard as we could. But in secrecy, like Dad and I were running off to meetings with accountants and law firms and
that must be
the consultancy.
Yeah, I could look at it in such a small way in that, when we were applying for our visa to come to Australia and my husband and I both had like businesses and we wanted to have viable businesses right up until we got on the plane.
Mm.
So even that, and that was just at a really small scale. So I can just imagine the pressure that must have put on.
I mean,
on the family as well as the business.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. Dad was a retailer at heart. Sales and marketing, loves selling stuff and customer experience. Mum, she was the bookkeeping. She was the accounts. She was the holder of the finances. And then I was a small engine technician. Grease monkey essentially. Turned Mr. Fix-It and IT help desk and e-commerce stuff and special projects, I suppose, manager.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we had great support from legal team and an accountancy advisory team.
Yeah.
But I mean, we were just a family who ran a good, honest business. So trying to, you can imagine some of the meetings.
Yeah.
And the discussions and, with multiple people. But I mean, everyone that was involved from the other side.
Yeah.
Big Four consultancy firms.
Did they acknowledge that
Absolutely
this was something that you were going to have to let go of? And did they acknowledge that?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't fault them if I tried, and they were so mindful of, you've got a business to run, and we get that. So we're trying not to inconvenience you, and they did a huge amount of work on their side to assist us and give us people when we needed them and that support. But again, there was some things which they couldn't do.
No. So your sales manager and general manager, did they move over?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone moved over.
Okay, good.
One of the preface was, everyone comes.
Yeah. And that was probably good. That was probably very important for you and the family to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean the journey, I look at the day that we announced, in partnership with Bunnings. I mean, that week there was, at the time I was entrenched with Bunnings' media team and this is how it's going to roll. And we had scripts and everything.
And yeah,
absolutely. And for me, I'd literally just had 6 weeks off with our first child being born.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So week 7, straight back, and it's like, okay, we're going to announce to, Australia that, Bunnings is acquiring our business.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can imagine the crow's feet and the puffy face from not much sleep and trying to get my head around, what news agencies are going to try and call me and what they're going to say, and then try and build scripts. And we had,
I was going to say, you would probably gone through a lot of media training and a lot of preparation around that.
Preparation, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we were trying to figure out how we can have all of our staff in head office before the news broke.
So how did you logistically manage that?
So we met, if I remember correctly, on the Thursday with our senior members, our general manager and our sales manager, Rob and Greg. And Dad and I had a meeting with them in the boardroom saying, last 2 years we've been working on this, and tomorrow we're going to announce that this is what's happening. And as you've seen, we've called a whole staff meeting for this evening after work with everyone, where we'll announce to our team.
Was that face-to-face or was it over video? Or
that was everyone face-to-face.
Wow.
In head office.
So you brought everyone, Gawler,
that's how we
Lonsdale,
operated.
yeah. And that was probably been very important, very scary.
Yeah. Well, we had the Bunnings team there.
Okay.
Bunnings HR, the lead team on that as well, to ask any questions. And I mean, it was this it was a really eerie.
Yeah, I can't even.
I mean, it makes me tingle now when I talk about it. It was like, people in tears, and people didn't know what to think. I mean, we took the industry by surprise. And yeah, I mean, by that time, staff had sent texts and things, and it got out.
Yeah, it was not under embargo once you've told your staff, let's be honest.
Yeah, and then the next day was, all the media outlets. I mean, my phone was just like, speaking with people and, the Bunnings acquisition team and suppliers, and it was like...
Yeah. And how did you manage and interesting enough, from yes, your staff is an impact, but then you've got your customers and your suppliers and your distribution, like your supply chain as well. So how was that managed the same time as the media, or was that managed slightly separately?
I mean,
there's a lot of parts, isn't there, really?
You've got to hand it to Bunnings. Again, I can't praise them enough, but their media team, we had emails ready.
Yeah, it was just suppliers. Like pressing buttons.
We had emails for customers. We had emails for team. We had everything literally ready to rock and roll to go.
Communication strategy was tight.
Yeah, I mean, there was, ready to go to media outlets. We knew, or Bunnings, I say we, but, Bunnings knew who were going to ask the questions and what questions they were going to ask.
Yeah.
And time slots booked to have an interview with me. And I was like, whoa. I mean, it was one of the most amazing days.
Yeah, I was going to say, what a phenomenal experience to have been in. I mean, from the other side of it as well, like you've got your bit with Adelaide Tools, but then Bunnings have got shareholders and the stock market. They've got all this other side that they're dealing with as well.
I mean, joint announcements with, Dad and Mike Schneider.
Yeah.
I mean, here's Dad, and then here's Mike Schneider, Managing Director of Bunnings Group Limited, with a joint letter to suppliers. I mean, I'm trying to tell the story, in a way that it brings everyone in. But I mean, it's hard not to be wrapped up from my perspective and be like, I mean, it was.
Did it feel surreal?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's when the hard work had only just started. I mean, that was the height of the pressure. I've never seen my father so.
Okay, can negative. I ask how old your dad would have been at this time?
So that was 2020. So 46. So 69.
Yeah.
68. Like, he was done. He was like, yeah, we're rock and rolling. Like, let's get it done. But the deal wasn't done.
No.
The deal and everything was in the hands of the ACCC. And if you've ever been in that position where, all your life's work.
Well, at this point, it's also 2.5 years in, and staff were and you've got that whole.
Yeah, is in someone else's hands. I mean, I can't imagine. I remember what I was going through, and I'm off. I mean, this is January, fishing trip. I'm going fishing. You do what needs to be done, and we were paperwork. And I was like, well, this is difficult. And we could do everything we could from providing evidence and stuff. 31st of March was D-Day.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, don't be silly. Don't be silly.
I remember this day so clearly. We're having a senior managers meeting.
Yeah. So this would have been a combined team meeting at this point?
No, we're still Adelaide Tools as a family. And I was sitting in our boardroom having our Tuesday senior catch up, myself and our, Rob and our general manager and Greg, sales manager. And the email came through. The ACCC are not going to oppose this deal.
The relief must have been.
It was like this.
Yeah.
And I remember Greg hugging me because I was like, it was this emotional release.
Yeah. And you probably wouldn't have realised how much you were holding until that actual decision came through.
And, by that time, Dad was back at work. So I ran into his office. I was like, mate, we're fucking on. We are on here. And then it was like, okay, I've had a minute and a half to deal with that emotion. Phone rings. Bunnings team. And it was like, let's rock.
Yeah,
let's get this done.
That was like, it's moving.
Hit the button. So there's no you got time to think about it. It's like, right, last phase.
Yeah.
Right, we're in, last 10 minutes of the fourth quarter here for the grand final. We need to arrange stock take of stores. Like, we had a 7-day finalisation period. We had to do stock takes across 6 stores. We'd never done that before. But we're going to do it. We're going to do this. What else we're going to do? And then after 7 days, and it so fell that it was going to be finalised Easter Thursday.
Yeah.
So, right, 4 days off
To digest.
Yeah. And the late nights of organising the computer data and licensing and all
And I don't
of
think
the
people
stuff.
realize, literally, you were probably having like 4 hours sleep a night. Not even that. You know, it's like you would have been working.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
Yeah, it would be working around the clock.
I mean, our daughter would have been what? September, October, November, December, January, February, March, 7 months old.
Yeah.
So it was, families like, but the money hit the bank account and it was done.
Mm.
So
Did you have a drink with your dad?
You can imagine the celebration we had Easter 3rd, because I said, we're having this at my house.
Yeah.
Naturally. So mum and dad, my twin sister and her husband, came over, and it was, I mean, we had a bottle of Grange, Penfolds Grange, 95. And that bottle still sits. I have a wine room in spot 1A. The empty bottle sits in spot 1A.
Yeah.
Purely as a recognition to go, everything that you have
started there.
Starts or with that bottle. So, I mean, sorry.
No, don't be silly. Don't be silly.
I mean, great
so
story.
What does Adam do if you've had the golden handshake? What is motivating you now in your journey and what you're doing?
Yeah. So, I mean, I worked for Bunnings for 2 years.
Yeah.
Through integration and building out the store of the future. And the day after I'd finished
can I just ask, sorry, can I ask, was that part of the deal that you would work with them for 2 years?
No, I mean, again, it was a discussion point to go, well, if we sell this business, like you're out in the ether. So I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Like I'll make my own journey. Like here's an opportunity for me to
make
my own journey. But I made a decision to, say that I'd done everything I could.
Yeah.
Up until that point, I had 3 weeks off, and I was like, yeah, this is the right decision for me.
Yeah.
I walked back in and said to the team, this is my last day. And then I went. So the day after, unemployed, walked away from pretty much everything I'd ever known.
Can I just ask, because I'm just being really, in some respects, this is 4.5, 5 years of your life at this point.
Yeah.
Had been this transition, acquisition, moving into corporate,
scale up.
Scale up. That's a long time.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think people realize it, but 5 years, that's like 4.5, 5 years you're border on now living and breathing this.
Yeah, I mean, we'd built a house. We'd had two kids as well. We'd moved house. We bulldozed the house. We were going to build another house. Like we had 5 years of just like full throttles with afterburner on. Like I had 6 months off. I was like, let me stay at home dad for 6 months. And my business coach, who is a dear friend and a great mentor of mine still to this day, I'm actually going to have a lunch with him after here, but he said, Adam, you've done things in this last 5 years which not a lot of people ever experience in their business journey, and you've done a lot. He said, people need that help. I said, great, I appreciate that. So look, I don't think I've got the confidence yet to do that, but that won't be forgotten. So I went and worked for another, retailer, big omni-channel retailer, proved my methodologies really quickly, and I was like, great. So I worked for them for a bit. Again, I think I've done enough here. Last year, right, let's do this. I'm going to become a business coach and help people, and the businesses that actually need that help, who don't have that resources, build a better business, become a better leader, and live a better life.
Can I just ask, because I know you just said I know you're going for lunch with your business coach after. Was that the same business coach way back when you were working with, just before you got the letter from one of the big fours? So it's so he's also been on that journey and seeing that journey, and also seeing your growth as well. So I just wanted to know if it was the same business coach.
Same guy. So I mean, he worked with me through the whole process. So from literally, we met before 2000. Before I got married, he said, right, when you get back, let's go. So yeah, we had 5 great years and he worked up with me right up until the moment I walked away from the business.
Yeah.
And then from there, he's asked me to present at some of his planning days, and he's always been that person just going, mate,
poking
more,
Yeah.
So
We're a phenomenal person to have alongside you, though.
Yeah, absolutely. There's significant people in the journey that I owe a lot to. Mum, there's dad, and he's one as well. There's been different managers over the time as well, and working with, Rob and Greg, in that senior team when I first came in, like they were awesome, and I'm very much suck everything I can out of people. And they were fantastic, for my growth. But yeah, Paul has been, and still now, I mean, we catch up. We're part of the same, network now as well. And he's always just continually pushing me to be a better version of myself, to, help other people be.
I know you specialize with your business coaching, you specializing in that retail space,
yes,
family business, or is it across industry?
Yeah, I mean, I love retail, and, there's a point where I just lost a bit of the energy for retail, but going back into another big retail, I was like, oh, I love this, selling SKUs, great customer experience, right? That's what I'm about, whether that's a florist or selling tools or camping equipment, wines. I mean, one day, I want to be in that winery cellar door space. That's my ultimate passion of retail and drinking and collecting wine. But, I work with trades as well. I mean, I look at business and I go, you have revenue.
Yeah. The fundamentals are the same.
The fundamentals are the same. Yeah. But retail is where I just enjoy it. It doesn't feel, it feels natural.
Yeah.
Love it.
So can I just ask, what are your mum and dad doing now?
Happily retired.
Yeah.
Looking after grandkids. I mean, mum is busier than she ever was in work, but busier doing the things she wants to.
Good.
She's got 4 grandkids now, which, I mean, that for her's
bliss, especially obviously from
absolutely.
Hearing the story from the very beginning.
Absolutely. So. Dad, he plays golf twice a week. With this weather warming up, he'll be out crabbing and fishing and, reading newspapers and, they're just doing their thing. There's no pressure on them. They're doing trust things and that, but, they're just living
the best life,
a good life now, which, they deserve.
Yeah, definitely. So I can ask, is there any future, do you have a boy, a girl, boys? What have you got?
Child-wise?
Yeah.
Yeah, a boy and a girl. Okay. So I've got the perfect.
So I need to ask, is there any granddad, dads and lads adventures bonding going to be happening in the future?
I would suggest so. Maybe not how they were.
No.
in the heyday, I mean, we've all grown up then. I mean, Wilbur's only 3.
Okay.
I mean, he's enough of a tornado as it is. We
could go crabbing.
Well, we're probably going to do golfing, I reckon.
Okay,
Wilbur's starting golf lessons this weekend.
Yeah.
As a 3-year-old, I mean, he hits balls and like he's just
got that hand-eye coordination and.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there'll be golf trips, no doubt.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Adam, thank you so much for coming on to The Glass Ceiling.
Thank you for having me.
Is there any way that people can get in touch with you if you want to share your details?
Find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Just search Adam Peach. You can check out my website, adampeach.trustedadvisor.com.au, or Facebook as well.
Yeah. And we'll put all that in the show notes as well. But can I just say thank you so much for sharing your story and journey. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thanks for letting me tell it.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of The Glass Ceiling. If you've liked what you heard, please subscribe, as we'd love to have you as part of our community. We're grateful to our guests for sharing their inspiring stories and insights with us. This podcast was brought to you by Wavebreaker. Join us next time as we shatter the glass ceiling, one story at a time.